Hey guys, welcome back to Cookies and Milk.
My God.
Episode 205.
No! Stop that. This is a spoiler warning for our podcast that you came in at the end of, which people are going to find out.
Oh, spoiler warning. I'm in this episode.
Yeah, spoiler warning. Ben's in this episode.
Spoilers for Moby Dick.
Oh. He's just going.
Barbie, Three Musketeers movie.
Uh-huh.
Is that the Barbie Three Musketeers movie, or were those two movies?
It's the same movie. It's the Barbie Three Musketeers
Okay.
movie. The Control-Delete TV show.
Oh, good.
Every single Nostalgia Critic movie.
Wait, what?
In reverse chronological order. So, hope you're prepared for that.
So spoilers we actually have warnings for are spoilers for Baraska, Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, Loaded, The Village / every Shyamalan movie, pretty much, The Wizard of Oz, As You Like It, both my parents were surgeons and I used to talk to furniture, Harry Potter.
That's a rough one. You spoil every Shyamalan movie?
Every single Shyamalan movie.
Damn.
They already spoiled themselves, though, so,
What?
everyone knows the twist.
I think it was just The Village and Devil.
Well, no, we talked, because I feel like we talked about The Happening a little bit. We talked about
I don't think we
some other ones.
spoiled anything, though.
Oh.
Unless knowing there's a twist.
Yeah,
is
that's the spoiler.
But if it's a Shyamalan movie,
You know.
I feel like that's a freebie.
We also have spoilers for Best New Horror, To Kill a Mockingbird, Cabin in the Woods, The Book of Life, Futurama, Courage the Cowardly Dog, False Memory, The Giver, Hereditary, Madoka Rebellion, How I Met Your Mother, and Black Butler to some extent.
And guess who talked about To Kill a Mockingbird and Harry Potter? Spoiler warning, it was not me.
Oh no, you ruined the twist.
Man, I am excited for this episode. Wait,
Uh,
I already know what happens in the whole thing now.
Were there any other things we talked about? I feel like you talked about something else.
Probably.
Well,
Lois Duncan, I Know What You Did Last Summer.
oh, that's right, that's what we talked about. I think that's about it, really. So, prepare for an episode, because in an episode about endings, this one definitely does end. Welcome back to Unsolicited Advice, brought to you by Toxic Bubblegum. I'm Bubblegum,
I'm toxic?
and today we're talking about endings of things, because things end.
They do.
They do. That's how things work, generally.
Yeah.
Yep. We have a quote.
We do. I was about to give another quote, just because you reminded me of it.
Because
But
I'm weird and awkward.
I actually chose a quote for this. Can't say I've ever been too fond of beginnings myself. Messy little things. Give me a good ending anytime. You know where you are with an ending.
That's by Neil Gaiman from The Kindly Ones.
Yeah.
So yeah, things end. That's generally what happens with a beginning is you also have an ending.
Yes.
It's not always neat and closed, but things do in fact end.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're like The Simpsons, whatever, in which case
Yeah.
never ending. Forever. But you know, generally, things end.
Usually.
That's what I'm told, at least.
So we're doing our things out of order. We're mixing it up today. We're going to do advice on the Advice podcast first,
What?
and then descend into madness as we talk about media toward the end.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad.
So feel free to quit whenever you want.
Don't
gonna-
tell them to stop listening.
Stop. You can just stop listening.
No.
This has been our advice.
No, please. I'm so sad.
That'd be so funny if we're just like, you can stop listening whenever you want after the advice portion, and then we just waited like a few minutes and assumed that they had
Yeah,
stopped.
we just started talking about something else.
No, so this is part one, where we talk about the end and the different kinds of story endings.
There are a lot. There are several.
So we have a definition of ending.
So an ending, an end or final part of something, especially a period of time and activity or a book or a movie.
Yes.
So, like ending times or final words, final scenes, all that kind of stuff.
Yes. And this is something, because we talked a little bit about opening lines, and I would also at one point like to do an episode just about closing lines, because I think that they're more important, which I also said on our podcast
right.
about opening lines. But we're not doing that today, we're just talking about ends in general.
Right.
So now we're going to branch into the different types of ending. Obviously, ending a story has a lot of different variables in it. There are different kinds of projects and different kinds of mediums and ways to end things, but there are traditionally accepted endings that fall into different kind of categories that we're going to go over.
So you get to start with that one.
Yeah. So we've got the satisfying resolution or the explicit ending, and this is an ending where everything kind of ties up. We get to see the major conflict resolved in some kind of manner that explains things and usually ties up a majority, if not all, of the loose ends. The example that I'm going to use for this would be Baraska by C.K. Walker. We get to see Baraska shut down. That's, we go from finding out, like, it goes through the whole mystery of what Baraska is and whether or not it's real. We get to see the whole mystery resolved. It's terrible. And then we get to see the whole thing shut down. The people who were running it are taken down in the process, and it's just, everything wraps up neatly. We get to see, like, all of the different myths explained, and the people who could be saved were saved. It was good.
It's all the loose ends were tied up,
Yes.
sort of thing, which is generally what you want out of an explicit ending.
Yeah.
The next kind of ending we have is a philosophical ending, or an implicit ending. And as I understand it, it's where the major takeaway from the story is more of a philosophical implication, like you're not left exactly with everything tied up, or maybe you are left with everything tied up, but it sort of leaves you on a moral quandary.
Yeah. This can also be known as this ties into the implied ending, which is where it cuts off right before we see the resolution happen, even though the groundwork has been laid for the resolution. Like, you can predict what it will be, but it's implied, which is technically a different kind of, it's like a sub-category of an implicit ending.
So the one I have here is Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, because technically the major conflict is resolved with Dr. Horrible getting into the evil League of Evil, because he does commit a murder, but the murder is not who he was intending to kill, and so we're sort of...
He got everything he ever wanted, and all it cost him was a penny.
I can't believe you would do this to me! Yeah, he kills his love interest instead of the hero that's been harassing him the whole time. So he gets everything he wanted, but he's sort of left wondering if it was worth it.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty big thing for it. It's a very sad ending.
It's a very sad end, and I think what makes it as philosophical as it is that we get to see, like, all of the parties and the acceptance into the evil League of Evil, but the actual final note is just him sitting in front of his webcam looking sad.
Looking very sad.
So we don't know whether or not he actually... Because we get to see all of those clips of him being, like, all cool and collected and stuff.
Right.
Where he wanted to be, but we don't know how much of that actually...
is
what true and is continuing.
And we'll never know.
No.
That's that was a song for you.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
We gotta do a musical episode.
We should not do a musical episode.
Absolutely.
It would be bad. I mean, I'll talk about musicals. I will do that.
No, we've got to do a musical episode in a musical format.
Oh no.
It'll be like Commentary the Musical. But a podcast. And you'll be the only one singing.
Oh, awkward.
I'll play a guitar.
Okay. That
Nice.
works. Oh.
Our next kind of ending is the cliffhanger ending, and this is where, this is pretty much where not only do we not get to see the resolution, but we have no idea what that resolution might be.
Right.
We're left in a very confusing or surprising place. My example for this is Loaded, which is probably no one knows what that is. It's a novella by Joe Hill, and it...
By Joe Hill, no way.
Yeah.
I can't believe this.
It's a political horror novella. It's about gun control.
Oh.
But this guy breaks that he isn't supposed to have guns because he's on probation, and
right.
This reporter ends up finding out that he's had guns on his probation, and it turns into a big thing, but he ends up targeting her. But he goes into her place of work at the end with a gun. He also, in the course of trying to get revenge on people he feels have wronged him, he ends up killing his own son. Accidentally, but also could have seen it coming.
Right.
So he's like blaming all of these things on the reporter, and he goes in, there's a shooting, he goes in and just starts like gunning people down in the office, and the last line of the thing, it's like right before you think he's going to shoot her, he finds her under her desk, and he has like his little quip, but then it just ends. Like, we don't get to see the resolution of that. And it is, I chose it as my example because that's like one of the most devastating literary cliffhangers I've ever
yeah, that's pretty bad.
encountered. I like turned the page to see like what the next thing was, and it was a new novella, and I'm like,
oh my god. Joe Hill. You monster.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ. The next one we have is the twist ending. So a twist ending is where all the way through you think that one thing is going on, and then in a twist of events you find out it's something completely different, or that something you didn't see coming. One of the biggest perpetrators, I think perpetrator is the right word for this, is anything by M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
He's like addicted to doing twist endings, and like he did like a good one for like Sixth Sense.
That was an amazing twist end.
And then he made everything else.
Then he just kept doing them, and they got more and more ridiculous.
So the one we're going to talk about is The Village, which is one of these ridiculous ones.
Yeah.
So it's like the whole time it's set in like this 1800s, like early colonial period town, and it's like there's a whole bunch of stuff going on, and no one's supposed to leave the town. That's the thing. And then like one of the people leaves the town, and it turns out it was in modern day the whole time because she gets hit by a car.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's bad. It's a bad twist.
The thing that kills me, because I think it actually might have been, there are so many, I find myself always wanting to almost defend M. Night Shyamalan. I shouldn't, because The Village was bad. But the concept was kind of cool, and even the concept for the twist I think could have been okay. It's that the society based around these monsters and the mythology was so much more exciting than the twist that it was. Because it built up, they had like all of these really cool legends about these monster things, and then it was just the elders of the town like in these monster suits trying to scare people so that no one knew about cars. And it's like, that's stupid.
That's so dumb. Would you like to defend The Lady in the Water? Would you like to defend that one?
I would not like to defend that one.
What do you not enjoy the lady siren person getting lifted up by an eagle, and
nope.
As it turns out, it was the shirtless guy who was the guardian the whole time.
Don't want to defend that.
It was just...
I will, however, defend Devil, because I think it's hilarious. I non-ironically like Devil. I don't think it's good, but I would watch it at any time.
Oh no, well I guess I have an excuse to watch Devil now.
It's so funny. I called the twist, like, 10 minutes into the movie. I was like, I know I'm like Shyamalan, I figured it out, it's her. And then she died, and I'm like, that's why it's a twist. And that was. And I was so proud of myself. Like,
oh my god.
So good.
Nice.
I also, The Happening was a thing.
The Happening spoiled its own twist a third into the movie.
That's my favorite thing about Stephen King novels is
Yeah.
that they're like, they always build up like it's going to be a big twist, but they always tell you like really early on
What it
what
is.
it's gonna be. That was my big problem with Under the Dome.
Yeah.
Because like Under the Dome, it's like 1,000 pages, and about like 100, 200 pages in, they're like, what if it was aliens, LOL? And then at, like 900 pages in, they're like, actually it was aliens. And it's like,
Like
yeah.
Stephen King, it's always aliens.
I know it was aliens.
God damn it, Stephen King. Your twist is almost always aliens.
Yeah, not good.
Whoops.
But that's how it works sometimes.
That's true.
So we also have the dream ending, and this is where it was all a dream the whole time. This also, in a lot of circles, is known as the terrible ending or the bad ending.
Yeah.
Because it is not done
So
successfully
Walker.
very often.
the Walker Texas Ranger ending.
Yeah. It's done badly more often than it's done well.
Yeah.
And it's not an ending that I would recommend.
It's most
For
often seen as a
most-
cop-out, usually. Like,
But a good example of it would be The Wizard of Oz.
mm,
Because Dorothy wakes up and is not in Oz.
as it turns out.
And it was not completely infuriating.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it because it's weird, because it sort of leaves you on an ambiguous note
Right.
with it. But it's good.
Which I think is the way to handle dream endings. Saying definitively that something is a dream is disappointing because it makes it feel like the whole thing was a waste of time, whereas ending on an ambiguous dream thing.
Right. Or, like, having something so the dream actually mattered.
Right.
Because it's like, the whole thing was, like, Dorothy was using it to, like, get over, like, stuff that was
Yeah.
actually happening. Whereas when someone just wakes up and it was a dream the whole time, it's like, what?
She learned things from it.
And that's the point.
Yeah.
That's how it should be used.
Right.
Uh,
If you're going to use it, that's definitely the angle to take.
So the next one we have here is a Deus Ex Machina ending, which is basically when you're in the you're in the resolution, and, like, it seems like nothing, can save it. So instead of, like, working it out with something that's already present, the author just puts something totally new in,
Yeah.
and that's it. It solves everything. That's how it goes.
Yeah.
Um,
Also, we were talking about what we could use for this, and
Uh-huh.
I know that you've chosen one. We could have talked about Lord of the Rings. We could have talked about those giant fucking eagles.
Eagles! Gandalf the
But-
Eagles!
Whatever.
It's fine.
Fine.
No
I have
problem.
forgotten about them.
Listen,
Honestly.
I had also forgotten about them. I mean, I knew they were there. My favorite thing is back when How It Should Have Ended was really big, and it was
I
just
thought they
like
were good.
back when and it was like fucking let's just use the Eagles and throw the ring in. Can you imagine if we walked all the way there?
One of us might have
Died.
died.
Oh, so good. But no, so the one I chose is As You Like It, or any Shakespeare play. Lots of Shakespeare's plays had Deus Ex Machinas.
I think almost all of the comedies did.
Yeah, but I mean, because I think that was one of the things with Shakespeare was it's funnier to just throw something in
Yeah.
than actually work things out. So in As You Like It, like, there's a bunch of romantic subplots going on and everything, and at one point one of the characters, one of the characters' brothers, who has never been mentioned before, just shows up and is like, oh yeah, I fixed everything. I fixed all the problems with the royalty, and you're not exiled anymore, and it's all good. Also, the literal god of marriage shows up to fix, like, a bunch of the romantic subplots, and it's like, yeah, okay. That's fine. That's good.
Makes sense.
It's fine. Yeah, Shakespeare had a way of just, like, sort of throwing things in. But, I mean, like, that's... Luckily, he knew how to be funny about it, so, like, it worked for a comedy. It would not have worked as well for something like Romeo and Juliet or, like, any of the tragedies.
Yeah, it's definitely... When you're not taking yourself too seriously, it's a lot easier to get away with something like that.
Right. Though, I guess, what's the fucking, in Hamlet, what's the guy that just shows up? Fortin,
Oh, God, yeah.
Fortin Boss or something like that.
Right.
I only remember this because I remember it from my sister's Hamlet project, where they had, like, a name tag for him, but it was a stuffed Mickey Mouse.
Yeah.
Because that's how Hamlet projects are, I guess. But yeah, like, he's not really a Deus Ex Machina because he doesn't do anything, but he definitely does just show up, like, at the end and is like, I'm here now to do things, and it's like, who are you, though? I don't care! But yeah.
Nice.
As it turns out, yeah, Shakespeare was good at Deus Ex Machinas.
Yeah.
Which is hard because a lot of the time this is also seen as a cop-out ending.
Right.
Because it's seen as not being able to justify your own work, so you have to throw something new in there to fix everything.
It's definitely something that I think you can get away with better if you tie it into... if your theme is something like shit just happens, then it's kind of acceptable. But if you have like a really serious story and you have other things going on, it can seem like you just couldn't think of a way to resolve whatever situation you had gotten yourself into.
Right, which is not good. You don't want to be that person.
Right.
Ever.
No. So our next kind of ending, it would be the tie-back ending, and I'm going to talk about one of my favorite Reddit no-sleep stories, because for a long time this was a really popular formula on Reddit no-sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to talk about Both My Parents Were Surgeons and I Used to Talk to Furniture, which was the title of the story, and that's how it starts. That's like the opening line for it. So it starts out, it's kind of nonsensical, and you're like, that's a silly thing, you know?
Right.
You kind of don't take it too seriously going in. And it goes through the whole thing, and it explains how the kid's parents, like when he was little, he used to talk to furniture, because there was a lot of furniture in the house, but he didn't have a lot of toys. He was very isolated as a child. His parents worked a lot, and they had a big house, but it was gated, and he didn't have any friends, and he didn't know that it wasn't normal for kids not to have friends, and he made up like personalities for the furniture instead. And as it unravels, you finally get to learn that all of the furniture had been made by the parents from reassembled bits and pieces of people, and it goes through the statistics of how many people can make what different kinds of pieces of furniture, and it goes through like the trauma that this kid went through being taken away and learning that this is not what furniture was supposed to be, and like all of the through like his parents' trial and everything, and he ends up following a very minimalist lifestyle as an adult because he can't bear to have furniture in his house. But it comes back around, and the last line of the story is, both of my parents were surgeons and I used to talk to furniture. Mm-hmm. So we get that same line again where it makes sense in context, and it's like the one sentence really summarizes the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And it's so much, it's like very disturbing the second time you hear it.
Right.
Whereas, it doesn't mean anything going into the story.
Right, you start out and you're like, what the fuck is this? And then you finish the story and you're like, oh god, don't say that.
And that was, I wish I could think of a couple of other ones. It was a really big formulaic thing for a long time on Reddit No Sleep. That was like the thing that year, was to do stories like that. But it was my favorite example because it was really chilling by the time you get to the end.
When you get to the end of the story, it's really real fucked up, as it turns out.
Yeah.
Reddit No Sleep's good at that, as it turns out.
Really good. And there were like a lot of other ones, even ones that like didn't use the last line. There was like, I dared my best friend to ruin my life, and I trained crows to bring me quarters, where it's like, these are nonsense phrases to anyone who hasn't read the thing, but No Sleep's, that's like their whole thing.
They're good at it.
This is also like, and it's something that I would recommend. This is a side note, it has nothing to do with ending a story, but but I do think that writing like a short tie-back ending story is a really good exercise for anyone who wants to use, who wants to get better at foreshadowing.
Yeah.
And then, because it's like a good way to practice where it's really blatant and easy to keep track of, but the skills carry over for smaller things, for tying up loose ends in general.
I really like doing tie-back endings in my stuff when I write.
Yeah.
I think it just works for me, I feel like. So, I think it can easily be one of the most effective endings to tie it back to the beginning. Or the middle, or wherever it needs to be tied back to. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the last one we have on here for the common type of endings is we have a long view ending, which, as I understand it, means an epilogue.
Yes.
Where it goes past the conflict resolution, and then we get to see where everyone is at later. And the one I have for this is Harry Potter. Because after everything is tied up and neat, we go like 20 years?
19.
19. It had to be off by...
Specifically 19. Because that's like the last line of the book is, and Harry's scar hadn't hurt him for 19 years.
Aww. But so, yeah, it goes forward like 19 years and we get to see who everyone's married to and who has kids and who
what
named...
dumb names they give
what dumb names they gave their kids and everything like that. And so it just sort of ties up additional loose ends that maybe you didn't even know about, or just gives you extra confirmation on certain things. And yeah,
it's something that works better for like long series,
right?
Because we want to see what happens in the future to these characters that we care about, but we don't want to go through the entirety of their lives after the adventure is over.
Right. We can sort of skip forward a little bit and move on. You know what I could also talk about this for is the Adventure Zone.
Oh, yeah.
Because as it turns out, it's not quite as long, but it goes forward like, well, actually, never mind. I was wrong. It goes forward and it's like a year, and it jumps forward to two of the... not of the main cast, but like, two of their coworkers are getting married, and it's like they have like a nice little resolution, and then like you sort of get to find out what everyone's been up to within the year, and then the sad part of the ending is it jumps forward like a long time, and we get to see Magnus die, because then he's reunited with his wife in the afterlife, and it's really sweet, and it's really sad also, because no one wants to see Magnus die. It's sad! He meets her and their dogs, and they have a cute little cottage that she's built for them, and it's like, no! It's adorable! It's very good.
Nice.
Yeah. I like it a lot, as it turns out.
The danger of doing long view endings is that depending on how you break them up, they can seem really tedious.
Like Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
I'm talking about Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Because it ends like 5 times,
right?
At least.
Yeah. Return of the King has
So
like
many.
half of that movie.
Half of that movie is the ending!
ending.
God damn it!
So be careful about how you do it. Also, I didn't even think about this. How I Met Your Mother, the finale that I'm always talking about, the 2-part finale episode, is just a long view ending, and it's bad.
And we're about to talk about it even more.
Yeah, that's gonna come back around later. In the segment. But right now we're in part 2, which is just like tips that we have for wrapping stuff up. And this, it's kind of like what we said with the different kinds of ending. There are a lot of different ends that you can do, so it's hard to give concrete, specific, step-by-step advice on how to end something.
Right, because it really depends on who the writer is, how you're gonna end something.
And what kind of thing you're going for and whatever. But we have, like, some general tips for you. So, yeah. We'll jump into that. Compare and contrast your, and what this I can't talk. What this mostly refers to is your main character, because what you want from an end, I would say more than anything else, in most situations, in like 90% of all situations, what you want is for your protagonist to have grown.
Right.
So if you don't know if your end is solid, look at your protagonist at the end of the story, and then compare that to who they were at the beginning of the story, and just looking at their character arc, kind of see what your takeaway would be, because if it's a strong takeaway for your main character, it's likely going to be a strong takeaway for your audience.
Right, because unless the point of your story is that nothing has changed, including the character, the whole reason we've been reading this book is to see their adventure, and if they haven't changed through the course of the adventure, then what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, who?
And I think, even in, and this isn't definitive, I would say that even in situations where, like, the point is that nothing really has changed, you do want to have some kind of, you want to make your character have some kind of thing in the middle. Like in 1984, you know, it ends with the protagonist loving Big Brother, which, you know, is not a surprise. But we get to see the whole kind of philosophical arc
of that.
Of what it means to really, like, turn yourself over to a government like that. So it's like, or like we have Fahrenheit 451, where the world doesn't change, but we get to see that Guy has changed how he looks at it. So yeah, that's
also
just,
there was nuclear bomb at some point.
Well,
something
yeah,
happened.
Yes.
What a book!
Definitely is a book.
So yeah, compare and contrast is a good one. The next one we have on here is to wrap up the loose ends. This is generally also something you want to do if you're sort of telling a straightforward linear story, because as it turns out, people like resolution.
And that's something, it doesn't tie into all of the end forms that we talked about, but for a majority of stories,
right,
you want to do that.
Like, you're gonna see this a lot in, like, children's stuff, because as it turns out, like a lot of Disney movies and stuff like that, they wrap up all the loose ends, to make sure that there's nothing to interrupt the happy ending of the fairy tale.
Right.
Because it turns out loose ends breed sequels, though Disney has no problem making those with no loose ends. They will make new ends.
Yeah.
Disney. Damn it. But yeah.
Yeah. So another tactic that you can use, and this is something that works for a lot of people, is you can write the ending first. I don't do that because especially when I'm working with longer projects, I get most excited about the end of things. So I kind of use getting to write the end as motivation for making it all the way through the project. Which is why I don't do that, but it does work for a lot of people. It's something that they say if you have trouble writing endings to start there, because it's a good way to, especially if you don't outline, it's a really good way to get your thoughts organized on where you want the story to go, so that you have a clearer path on how to get there.
And I think one of the things is also you can write the ending, and then you can go back and write the rest, and then if that ending doesn't fit, you can always change it.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have an idea in mind of where you want to get to, but I think you can realize more what you're going for after you've written it and gone back and sort of seen how everything would happen.
Right. That also happens sometimes.
Sometimes that's how it be.
And that ties into our next thing.
Woo!
Also, if you want to.
Which is testing different endings.
Yeah.
So, write different endings. See which resolution you like the most.
Yeah.
So one of the things is, like, different endings are gonna feel different in different genres. So, like, the general rules, if you're writing, like, a comedy or a story where the hero comes out on top, you want them to start at a higher place than they stopped. But this can be in different forms of, like, overcoming physical obstacles or mental obstacles or stuff like that. And in a tragedy, you want them to be lower than they started.
Yeah.
That usually ends up with them dying, I'm not gonna lie. That's how a lot of tragedies go. But...
and this is more of a... Here's a piece of advice that is going to be controversial. Here's my controversial advice for the day. I would go with in almost any circumstance, I would go for the darkest ending.
That's
and
cute.
I know that does, it sounds like me just being pessimistic and liking sad fiction, but I feel like, I don't know, I feel like there's something really honest about dark endings, and it takes so much courage as a creator to go down that path. I think if you write a dark ending, it's probably the ending that you should be using. So, right, like, don't necessarily aim for dark endings, but if you're having trouble choosing between multiple endings that you've written for a project, and one of the things that got me thinking about this is because movies that have alternate ends, people almost always prefer the alternate ends that the studio wouldn't show in theater. A really good example of this is I Am Legend.
Oh,
which,
yeah.
I'm
Because...
complaining about all the time, I feel like, but the movie anyway went such a different tone from Richard Matheson's book, but the studio end was just like, it was kind of like a generic whatever ending, and it took away, when they finally released the director's cut ending, it was so poignant and so well done, and we got so much social commentary, and it was beautiful. It was like a good end, and
it was a good end despite being dark.
Yeah. And it would have, I think it absolutely, if they had shown that in theater, I think we'd still be talking about I Am Legend on a regular basis.
Probably.
As a society, not just me.
Not just you.
And Little Shop of Horrors is
Yeah,
another one.
I was going to talk about Little Shop of Horrors because it was like, because in the movie, they get a happy ending, which is definitely not how the stage play ends.
But they did record...
Yeah, they recorded
it for the movie. You can go watch the alternate end for Little Shop of Horrors.
Like, it's one of those things...
Better.
Like, I heard about the ending for the movie, and I was like, what? That's how they end it? Really? Because clearly it's, like, it's a comedy, but it's a dark comedy.
Right.
And, like, the fact that it ends with, like, the plant takes over the world, and as it turns out, everyone gets their, they get their just desserts for doing all these horrible things. It's like, as well-intentioned as Seymour is, like, he is still doing bad things. He did murder several people to feed them to a plant. And, like, because it's like, the whole thing is, like, he ends up having to feed Audrey too, because she dies. And then he's like, I'm gonna destroy you from the inside out. And then he gets eaten by the plant, and then the plants take over. Yeah. And it's like, also the ending song is really good for it.
Really good.
So it's like one of those things where it's just like, what? It's okay to have a dark ending.
It's okay to not let... and this... I'm sure none of our listeners have ever had problems with studios telling them how to end their work. That'd be great.
Yeah.
If, like, we had famous movie directors taking our advice.
God, can you imagine? And our 6 viewers.
I do think, though, it would be... it would be nice to see that. Get Out also had a really dark alternate end.
Yeah.
And it's a horror movie.
Yeah,
so
I
feel like
that?
it should have gone for it.
Huh.
Especially because it, like, got so much credit for being a socially aware movie.
Right.
And the end...
was not.
Yeah, in the alternate end, he gets blamed for everything anyway.
God.
He was, like, obviously the victim, and it's like, that's such a societal thing that would happen.
Right.
Putting that in a movie, it really did put a damper on the end of the movie, but it's a horror movie, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's allowed to happen.
As I understood, it wasn't really supposed to be a happy movie.
No.
Whatever.
Anyway, so test different endings. Maybe use the dark one.
Maybe.
Definitely, because I think it's good if you can really surprise people. Go an unexpected way.
Be like, oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the next one is something you don't do.
This is true.
So the next one we have is outlining and storyboarding, which, you know, we've talked about outlining before. That was our entire first episode.
Yeah.
Is outlining helps you to, like, just figure out where everything's going without having to commit to anything right away. It also helps you keep track of, like, all the stuff that's going on, because, like, if you write, like, a really long story, you're generally going to have a lot of things going on. Unless you're Stephen King and you spend all the time writing descriptions.
Yeah.
Or same thing with, what's his face? Charles Dickens.
Yes.
Man could write a scenery description for pages. But yeah, so it just sort of helps if you sort of have a hard time keeping track of things, or if you're trying to just plan everything out without committing to it or getting too into the details of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I do a little bit of this, like, for longer stuff, I don't write a lot of longer stuff, as it turns out. I don't generally do a lot of long things at the moment. I don't outline, like, my short stories at all. I just sort of write them when I feel it.
That makes sense.
But, like, when I'm doing, like, animation and stuff, like, because when I was in New York and I was doing my animation class, outlining and storyboarding was one of the most important things I did for it,
Mm-hmm.
because, oh my god, there was... There's so much detail that you have to put into it and so much consistency. It's just like, oh, God, I need help. So, yeah, it really depends who you are and what you're doing exactly, whether storyboarding and outlining is going to be good
Right.
in that instance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you have... This goes more into if you are uncertain about an ending that you've already written, but test readers are a really valuable tool,
Mm-hmm.
if you want to... Because an end usually is where a lot of the takeaway of a story is going to be,
Mm-hmm.
and having test readers or beta readers, it's a really good way to see what other people are getting out of your work without having all of the background information that you as the creator have for it.
Right. Like, I do that for you a lot.
Yeah.
With test reading, because I like to read your stuff.
Alan has to do my
Creep,
test
creep.
reading.
Creep, 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 creep.
I don't know why, because I'm always like, should I do this thing? And Alan's like, you always should do the thing. And then I always never get accepted to romance anthologies.
Okay, hold on. That's not on me. That's not on me. That's not on me.
Also, don't, here's a tip. Here's a pro tip. Don't do a podcast with your test readers and then call them out on your failures.
What are you doing to me? You can't do this to me. Who do you think you are? I am. Oh.
Test readers are good, guys.
No, I do enjoy being a test reader, though. I like getting to see things and give feedback on them. And then being sad when you get rejected for romance anthologies.
One day, I'm gonna make it into a romance anthology.
Maybe one day you won't write a...
shouldn't be there.
One day you won't write a horror story for a romance
It
anthology.
is so much more likely that I will be accepted with a horror story for a romance anthology than I will write a romance story for a romance anthology. We all know it.
That's true. I know it. I know it for sure. So, and the last thing we have is figure out what your last line is going to be. What's the note you want to end your story on?
Right.
Because as it turns out, that's the last thing someone's going to take away from your book.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be pretty solid.
Yeah.
Because again, you made them sit through a bunch of pages of writing, you want them to have a good takeaway. So it doesn't exactly have to, it doesn't have to be like a, it can be, the last line can be a twist that changes the entire thing. And then, or like, it can just be a nice bow on everything, or you have a lot of options with last lines.
It's probably because I don't work with twist endings a whole lot, but when I do twist endings, I like them to be last line twist endings.
Right, that's what I like. I like it to subvert everything.
Yeah.
Like, because then you have to go back and read it again.
There's a packs punch right there at the end.
Right. I feel like Max does a lot of those. Like, he does a lot of...
absolutely.
Because it's like, you read it and then you're like, oh god. There's one story he did, it's the assisted suicide story.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, so there's this woman and she's like talking about like this guy, and it's like he's pleading with her to like kill him, and like he does this every night, and like she tells people about it and they all look really concerned and they're like talking about it, and then she finally like, and then he like starts starting to hurt her, and like he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and then your kids are gonna be left alone and it's gonna be all your fault. And so then she goes through with it, and what you find out is that it was a fetus talking to her inside of her. Like, the last line reveals like she gave herself an abortion,
right?
Because she was hearing the baby threaten to kill her in childbirth. And I had to go back and reread the story afterwards because I was like,
yeah,
oh my god,
he's really good at stuff like that.
He is. He's a good author.
Example. Yeah.
But yeah, he is a fan of those, just really waiting to the end to pack a punch.
Yeah.
With that, and it works. It's very effective.
Read some unsettling stories, guys.
You'll be upset.
You'll be unsettled.
There's a reason they're unsettling stories. But yeah, I think there's a lot more to be said on Last Lines. We can have a whole episode about it, which we will in the future sometime.
Yes. It's also good if you have, like, even if you're not doing a twist, if you're having some kind of, like, just a poignant moment to linger on, a last line can be really important. Or even just to, like, reinforce the message. Oh, like we were talking about, before we started this, we were talking about Animal Farm, and it really, you can kind of see what the whole point is throughout the thing and where it's going and everything, but the last line just kind of reinforces that.
What is the last line of Animal Farm?
Like, and I'm not gonna be able to quote it verbatim, but it's like, and the men looked to the pigs and the pigs looked to the men, and already it was impossible to distinguish between the two.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Damn. Animal Farm's a good book.
Animal Farm's really good, and it just kind of, you knew it was building to that message, but it gets there, and it was powerful. It was, like, really strong.
Good books.
Yeah.
Lots of Last Lines are just very good.
Yeah.
There's a reason we'll have an episode about them.
Last Lines thing. But yeah, that's a good... Last Line is it's like your last opportunity to really seal in whatever you want people to think about your project, and it's good.
It's your parting words with them.
Yeah.
That's gonna leave that impression.
And now, part 3.
Now we get to have unpopular opinions and popular opinions.
Yeah. We're just gonna go through our best and worst endings real fast.
It's gonna be good. We're not gonna get off topic at all.
No.
Ooh.
So my favorite end in literature, unsurprisingly, it's a Joe Hill short story.
No way!
And I think I really like it because it's a good example of both the tie-back ending and a cliffhanger, which is a very rare combination of endings to get in there. But it's for his short story, Best New Horror, which was featured in 20th Century Ghost. And the story starts off, this guy is reading a story he was the editor of a horror magazine called Best New Horror. And he is reading the story about a guy that gets lost in the woods, and the guy, knows that he's not gonna make it out of the scenario because people never do, but he like psychs himself up into believing that he's going to make it
Right.
before he doesn't, is like how the story ends. And the editor gets kind of annoyed because he's seen the same thing so many times and whatever, and he goes through this whole journey with this other author that he's found who's written like the most disturbing thing he's read, and he gets like all impressed, and it reignites his passion for what he does. And as he's like trying to get an interview with this author, he stumbles into like this very iconic horror movie type scenario that he has to escape from, and at the end he finds himself fleeing in the woods, and he's like psyching himself up into thinking that if anyone could make it out, it would be him. And it ends there, so we don't really get to see what happens to him, but the story has also come full circle, and it was really good. And it was very excellently paced, because you get so invested in what's going on that you've kind of forgotten how the story started until it comes back around at the end.
And then you had that realization of it.
That was also, it was a strong epiphany moment for me, because that was, reading that short story was when I realized that Joe Hill was my favorite author.
Oh!
Like, I made it to the end of the story, and it was like, this guy can write?
Oh,
Like,
shit! He has talent! That's Kat's exact phrase. That's exactly what she said.
That's what I said when I met him. It's like, oh,
you
shit.
said it to his face!
He's got talent.
This is the America's Got Talent stage. You've got three X's above your head, and you're like, oh shit, you've got talent. That's exactly how Kat's meeting with Joel Hill is.
That's true.
She videotaped it.
I live streamed it. He's like, please don't.
Don't do this to me. Who the fuck are you?
Didn't I kick you out of here?
Oh no.
Yeah.
It's good. My example of one of the best literary endings is the end of To Kill a Mockingbird, which I feel like everyone has read at this point, but I will. So the entirety of To Kill a Mockingbird, it like takes place in this town, like it's in Alabama, right?
Yeah.
And so like it's like this like it's a white town, and like this and their whole thing is like it's based around these kids like growing up with their lawyer father who is defending a black man who has been accused of he was accused of raping a woman, right?
Yeah.
Of raping a white woman, which he didn't do as far as we can tell. Like there's no like actual real evidence for it.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious he didn't do it.
Right, and so it's like them like growing up and learning responsibility while also seeing all these racial overtones. And so like close to the end of the book, we see Scout, who is our main character, like she's walking home from like an event at school, and we actually talked about this last week. I feel
we
like.
did.
And she's like in like
spooky.
It was spooky. And she's like in this like ridiculous costume that's made from chicken wire, and she gets chased down by this mysterious figure in the woods, and she gets like caught up, and like she can't like get away. And then so someone comes out and saves her, and we find out that it was it was one of the family members of the woman who had accused. Wait, was it? Mm-hmm. Who was it?
It was Boo Radley.
I know it was Boo Radley.
Right.
But who was the guy who was chasing her down?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Because you just said like he saved her. Bob Ewell.
Yeah, Bob Ewell was the one chasing her down, which was one of the family members of the woman who had testified against the man. And Boo Radley, who has been this really mysterious figure, who he never leaves his house, and he's got all these urban legends surrounding him, from the kids in the neighborhood, and she had always tried to find him and see him, and so he ended up coming out and saving her from this guy who, even though his family had won the case, was still mad at her father.
Yeah.
Because he was a good person. But yeah, and then it sort of wraps up from there, and it's you see the kids maturing and everything, and it's good. It's a good ending.
It's they spend. I'm gonna cry.
Oh, no, don't cry, Kat! Are you thinking about To Kill a Mockingbird? Did you make you cry?
I am.
It's okay.
Because they spend so much time. Boo Radley they spend a lot of time. The whole thing is that they spend their summers trying to prove these legends about this man who is. He's just the scariest guy in town, and they have all of these things about how he's a monster and he eats pets and spies on people through the windows.
And he killed his family.
He killed his family. He stabbed his mom with her sewing scissors, and they have to keep him locked up in the house. And there are just so many things about him, and he ends up saving her, and they never talk about it directly. She sees him, and she knows who he is, and she looks at him, and her whole thing is just, hey, boo. And it's those 2 words. I cry every time I read To Kill a Mockingbird at the words, hey, boo, of all things. But it was so good.
It's so good. It's just
She just greets him as a friend. She's been trying to meet him for several summers now, and she gets to, and that's their interaction.
It's as simple as that. And it's real good. It's a very good book. It's one of the books you have to read in school that's actually very good.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess unless you live in the South, because To Kill a Mockingbird is banned.
They do not like To Kill a Mockingbird in the South.
Yeah, it's awkward. Very awkward. We were in, I drove down to Alabama. I was there for a total of 24 hours, and it was bad. It was the most awkward thing.
But if you go to Monroeville, which is the town that Harper Lee grew up in, and what they based Macomb County off of, there are a bunch of monuments and stuff.
It's sweet. We went there.
Yeah.
That's what we did. That was our little trip on our way back.
They've got a Mockingbird Inn, and they have the statue of
you can
German Scout.
Yeah, you can sit next to them, and it's really cute and fun.
Nice. Anyway,
let's not let you cry.
Now that I'm done crying over a book I've read dozens of times now, my favorite movie end is Cabin in the Woods.
Whoa!
It's a Joss Whedon ending. He has a lot of very bold endings.
That's true. That's a great way of phrasing it.
They're not always well received. Cabin in the Woods, I think, was one of just the best things ever, though. Because it's built up. The whole thing is about different cultures and human sacrifice, and basically not letting ancient gods destroy the world. And there's this one character, he's one of my all-time favorite characters from anything, Marty, who's just this laid-back stoner conspiracy guy, and he's talking about how maybe humans shouldn't be in charge anymore, and it gets down to the point it's up to him and the only other survivor of this zombie horror movie Evil Dead scenario he has to sacrifice himself, he has to martyr himself to complete the ritual so that the old gods don't come back, and he just decides not to. He's just
nope.
I'm gonna die in either scenario, and I think humans are done for, we've had it too long. And he just sticks to his guns on that, and he actually convinces his friend also has the chance to murder him to complete the ritual, and she also doesn't do it, and the movie ends with the old gods rising. We get to see just the start of that, and it was just such a good, because it's got that classic martyr build-up, and then he doesn't take it.
And he's no, actually, fuck this.
He just sits there and gets high for, his last minute on Earth, and it's
if you're gonna go, you might as well.
It's good. I don't think most people would have gone that way.
That's
in the
true.
Movie, but it was good. It was a good call.
As I understand, people are very split on the ending. Like, half the people love it, and the other half of the people hate it.
Yeah.
That is like, yeah, but what? It would have been out of character for them to have actually done it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what other ending would have worked.
I don't know. They do a really good job tricking you into thinking
Yeah,
that he's gonna be the one to come around and be like, no, it's okay for you to kill me. And he just never does. And it's like,
no.
It's good.
It's a good one. My movie example is, I really love the ending for The Book of Life. Because it ends, so the whole story is, like, told as, like, it's told, like, from The Book of Life, about these, 3 friends who become heroes, and their whole adventure starts when, the 2 death gods, La Muerte and, Xibalba, make a bet on 2 of them about who is going to end up, with the girl. Because they both clearly are in love with her. And so they each choose one of the champions, and then the whole movie plays out, and it's like Xibalba is influencing his throughout the whole way, while La Muerte is just standing back, and, like, the other thing is, like, they have a whole romantic subplot where it's like, they're married, but they're having a fight, and they're mad at each other. Specifically, La Muerte is mad at Xibalba because he's sort of a dick. So, throughout the movie, like, they're, influencing everything, and in the end, when, the 2, get together, La Muerte and Xibalba also get back together, because, Manolo and Maria's love reunited them, also, and helped Xibalba to change his ways. And then at the very end, we come back. It's a frame story because it's being told to this other group of kids.
Right.
And the whole thing about, like, La Muerte's realm of death is that in order to stay there, you have to be remembered. So that's why it's called the Land of the Remembered, as it turns out. The kids, like, leave and they get back on their bus to go back to school, and then we find out that it's been La Muerte that's been telling them the story the whole time to keep everyone who was, like, involved in it in the Land of the Remembered. So they'll never be forgotten because they deserve to live happily forever. Mm-hmm. And then we also see that she and Xibalba are still together, and it ends on them kissing and, like, telling about how love is forever, and it's real cute, and it's real sweet. I saw this movie like 4 times in theaters. I love it so much. It's just super cute. I love it.
It's a very cute movie.
Please watch it. It's so good. But yeah, that's mine.
Nice.
That's mine. You're like, I like cute endings.
Speaking of cute endings, season 10 of Futurama final finale.
For real this time.
For real. They go through the whole episode. Fry breaks a device that the professor has built, and it ends up freezing time in the moment where he was trying to propose to Leela. Mm-hmm. And everything is frozen in the world except for them. And it shows the progression of their life together. They still get married. They have a ceremony where they marry each other to themselves. They go on a honeymoon where they hike around the entire world because the oceans are, like, frozen over, and mm-hmm. They hike around the entire world. They have they spend several decades together just enjoying each other's company, and they sit down, they come back to I'm having a serious moment, and then I have to say the name of the building. They come back to the Vampire State Building in New York, where he proposed to her, where the whole thing started, and he asks her if she ever got lonely or if she would have done anything different, and she says that she wouldn't have, and that she enjoyed her time with him. It was like the best life that they could have had. And the professor comes back. He's been trying, because he got stuck in the time loop, and he's been trying to get out the entire time, and he comes back finally at the end of this thing, and he fixes the device and gets time moving again, and he offers them the chance to do it all again, and they hold hands and they go back together. And it's just like, it was really sweet. It was like unexpectedly emotional.
Yeah, you're gonna cry!
I'm gonna cry over Fry and Leela. No, but it's really sweet. And, you know, Fry and they didn't have the best relationship on and off throughout the show. It was really bad, but it was just like a really sweet ending for those two. And like, it left hope that there would be more, even though there never was.
Because it got canceled.
But it was my favorite because Futurama got canceled so many times, and that one
of all the
ended on a
endings.
good end.
Oh, so cute. Aww.
So yeah, that's like my, I think, favorite television finale just of all time.
It's just very good and very sweet. Oh,
It was sweet.
cute. I'll talk about one that won't make you cry. Actually,
Thank
it
you.
might make you cry more. Actually,
Yeah.
the
Trigger my anxiety really bad.
So the one I chose for my top TV ending is the ending of, I've been talking about the show a lot lately. It's the ending of Courage the Cowardly Dog, which it doesn't like have like a firm wrap up of like everything that happened in the series, because that's fucking impossible. That show was weird as fuck, and so many things happened. But in the final episode of the show, like, this weird teacher lady shows up, which is not unheard of in this universe. She just sort of shows up.
In the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, in the middle of nowhere, and takes residence in their fucking attic. And so her whole thing is, like, she's trying to teach Courage how to be perfect. And so she's trying to, like, fix his posture and, like, teach him how to, like, read and write and speak. Because the whole thing is, Courage on and off knows how to speak English. Like, he does it really well in, like, the first couple of episodes, like the
Yeah.
first season, and then he loses that ability as the seasons go on.
It becomes more and more a charades-based language.
Right. But so, and he fails at every turn. Like, he can never get it right. And so, and she scolds him every time. And it's, like, to the point where it's, like, that it's, like, not even, like, Muriel can't cheer him up. And, like, Eustace can't even scare him anymore. He's, like, so, like, depressed and, like, anxious and upset about the fact that he can't be perfect. And then, in classic Courage fashion, he's, like, trying to learn how to brush his teeth perfectly.
Yeah.
And a fish shows up in the bathtub, a dead fish shows up in the bathtub, is, like, swimming around, and it, like, just looks at him and is like, you don't have to meet standards of perfection. You're perfect just the way you are. And it's, like, gives him this little speech, and it's, like, suddenly...
I'm gonna cry.
I'm so sorry! It's such a good ending, though! But so he goes back to his lessons, and she's like, do this, like, your final exam is you have to draw the number 6 perfectly. And so instead of doing that, he draws, like, this really ridiculous picture,
Yeah.
and then she's like, that's not a number 6, and then he folds up the paper, and it's the number 6 made out of all of his drawings.
Yeah.
And it's like, she explodes. She, like, melts into a puddle, and, like, that's the end of it. And then, you know, he sort of has this self-realization that despite everything, he's just who he is.
Yeah.
And that's good enough for, like, him and Muriel, and who cares about Eustace. But it's just really good. It's, like, because the show has such a way of just fucking ending all the time.
Yeah.
So, like, having it end on such an aggressively positive note is so nice. And it's, like, really what, after everything, Courage deserved
Yeah.
out of everything was to just be at peace. It's good.
It was nice. It's
very
It's
good.
like one of my favorite episodes of Courage.
It's very good. It's one of the ones that always sticks with me. Like, I always... Like, when I think of Courage, I think of that episode.
Yeah.
Also, the slab.
Yeah.
That one's hard to forget, also.
So now that we've talked about best,
Now we're going to talk about the worst.
we're gonna talk about the worst. My literature example is not going to surprise anyone at this point because I'm always complaining about this. False memory.
I love it when you complain about false memory, though. It's so good.
False memory is such a terrifying, but it's the concept and the first however many pages really deeply disturbing psychological horror novel, and it ends with just there was this woman who was afraid of Keanu Reeves.
That was her thing. She was a Keanu phobe.
Yeah, she was a Keanu phobe, which is what they refer to her as, who comes in with a gun, shooting everybody, and the therapist has, like, only been hypnotizing people and doing all of this creepy shit because he's angry about an internet scam that the guy's, like, adopted, I don't remember, stepson or whatever
That's too many steps.
come up with, and it was bad. There were so many twists at the end, and it got so ridiculous because of the woman called the Keanu phobe, and it wasn't even that it's like the worst end that I've ever read.
It was, but
it definitely might have been. But the story had so much potential, and it was going strong for so long,
And then
it
he
was just
fucked
such
it
a
up.
shame.
which he has a history of doing, as I understand.
I think I don't know why I'm talking about this. I've already I could quit. I think
You
the
could.
worst end that I've ever read, genuinely though, is I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Oh, yeah?
Spoken.
Really?
No one dies. Everyone makes it out okay. In a teen slasher, which teen slasher is a genre of movie, it should not be a genre of fiction because there is no slashing, and it drives me crazy. I don't like it. But the last thing, the guy ends up, the killer, quote unquote killer, because he doesn't successfully murder anybody. He
Right.
just sends a lot of notes and whatever.
Creeps.
He just like creeps around, but he doesn't get the one guy, and this woman's like, it's been like really creepy, and for a teen slasher novel it's been really creepy and suspenseful and whatever, and like the last page, this woman's like, but why didn't he do anything to target you? And he's like, because hurting you was the worst way to hurt me. And it's like, I hate that. And they get together like right at the end, and it was like super mushy.
That doesn't make
And
sense.
uncalled
Why would I
for.
do that?
But the whole book was bad, so I didn't care that the end was bad.
Right.
False Memory was the most upsetting end, just because it had been so good.
Right, it had so much potential and it fucked it up.
so fast.
Oh no.
Like the sharpest decline. Yeah. So that's my pick. And also another pick that I complained about.
Multiple picks. So the one I have is The Giver. I had a very hard time picking it because I don't read books. I'm sad to say it, but I just straight up don't read books. I can't pay attention long enough to do it. But I do remember the ending of The Giver. Cause it's like they're in like the community or whatever, and he starts to see color, and it's like they're like, you have to leave this place, and so like is it his baby brother? Where does the baby come from?
The baby, everyone's allotted 2 babies, but this one, the dad works at the nurturing center, and there's one baby that's underweight, so they've been taking care of the baby to try to get it up to weight so that they can give it away next year to the allotted family.
Anyway, he takes the baby of bizarre origin.
And then because like they had an escape plan, didn't they? Wasn't that the thing? They had an escape plan.
He wasn't supposed to escape with the girl, right?
Right, maybe.
Yeah, I feel like they were supposed to escape together.
Anyway, they had like a rendezvous point or whatever, and he ends up screwing the whole thing up because he finds out that they're going to kill this baby, and he's like, it's so important that I take this child.
Right. So he fucks everything up.
Yeah.
And then he runs, and then, like, it's winter, then, like, he's, like, running in the snow, and, like, falls down a hill, and, like, these people find him, and that's just the end of the book.
Yeah.
That's just straight up the end of the book, and I'm like, what? That didn't answer anything.
Yeah.
It just ended, and it was, like, I don't even, like, really care about this book, but it was, like, fine, and then it was just weird. Like,
that's another one because it had a lot of really interesting concepts in it.
Right,
but
like,
it just did stop.
Right, like, I think the idea of, like, a place where, like, people have been, like, mandated so they can't even see color, and then, like, getting, like, these basic senses back is, like, so surprising, and it's like, what? That's such an interesting thing.
Yeah.
And
having
then
one person remember all of the world's pain so that society doesn't have to feel anything that extreme. It's like, it's so cool.
But they sort of fucked it up. Like, it was weird. It just got weird.
Yeah.
At the end there.
It definitely would have been a better, like, adult novel, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Also.
If they had, like, pushed it
like,
a little more.
Young adult was a weird genre for that.
They
I feel like.
made us read so many adult novels. And then The Giver was not written for adults.
Right.
It's, god damn it. Yeah, but that's just always one of those things where I was like, what? Why?
My cinema pick, real popular.
Real popular, especially right now.
Yes. Hereditary.
God, it's so bad.
I don't even really have a lot to say about it other than there's just, like, it gets better and better and better and better, and then there's just a decline at the end.
Yeah.
The quality drops, the storytelling drops,
It's like one of those things, it's supposed to be where, like, all the big scares are.
Yeah.
But, like, there's the point where, like, the mother is chasing the son, and it's like he goes up to the thing and, like, he hears the knocking on the door, and then it pans down, and she's just, like, on the ceiling knocking her head against it, and I was like, I have to try so hard not to laugh right now.
Right.
Like, what?
And then there was, like, that L...
The Photoshop.
Yeah.
Just straight up After Effects it.
Yeah.
But, like, bad After Effects. Really bad After Effects.
So Hereditary, not great.
Not great, as it turns out.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Terrible, if I had to say so.
Yeah.
So mine is something I have not talked about yet on the podcast, and there's a righteous fury behind it.
We have talked about how we're not talking about it.
We have talked about how we're not talking about it. Now we're talking about it. I hate the ending of Madoka Magica Rebellion. It is my least favorite ending of all time. Of anything. It is garbage. So let me tell the story of how the first time I saw Rebellion. So I was watching it in Anime Club with all of my friends, and we're all sitting there, and, like, there's a couple of us who haven't seen it before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everyone else has seen it before. And so we're watching it, and me and my friend are, like, sitting together, and, like, we're getting there, and it's, like, all the stuff is happening, and, like, things are about to be really good. So Rebellion is all about Madoka's friends dealing with the fact that they don't remember her, and Homura is, like, trying to bring her back, and everything. And so, and a bunch of chaos happens, of course, because why wouldn't it? So, towards the end, we see Madoka is, like, there as her, like, god form, and she, like, reaches out to Homura, and she's like, we can be together forever, and we'll be happy, and we can just be together, you and me. And, like, so they're, like, reaching out, and so Homura takes her hand, and then she just turns into a fucking devil, and is like, we're gonna do this my way! And so she fucking resets the timeline, so Madoka is alive again as a person, but they have to live in the fucking hell world of the witches again, which Madoka, that whole ending of Madoka was her sacrificing herself to get rid of it. And it was the first time that in Madoka, the fact that the writer is a huge fucking misogynist really came through in the Western culture, because Homer was just like, I'm gonna fuck everything up and ruin everybody's lives, because now everyone else remembers, like, all the bad shit, except for Madoka, And she just fucks it up. She just fucks everything up. I was literally crying, and, like, that happened, and I was just enraged for the next 10 minutes. Like, I was more pissed off than I've ever been at any kind of media.
Yeah.
I fucking hate it so much.
Right.
Because it's, like, it got rid of, like, even, like, it just negated the entire point of the series.
Yeah.
Basically. And it was like, wow. This guy actually really does suck. Like, now I have those grounds to stand on.
I remember a very distressed text from Alan about...
Yeah, it was not early. It was late at night, and I was very mad. Because that's how it is sometimes.
That's how it goes.
Sometimes you go to anime club and you just get fucking pissed. That's life, I guess.
That's life.
But yeah, I really, really hate Rebellion more than anything in the world, I think.
That's fair.
Fuck. Now I'm mad.
Oh no.
We need to talk about something else because I'm just fucking mad now.
Because this is the part we promised you earlier where I talk about How I Met Your Mother.
What?
The last episode of How I Met Your Mother, it's a 2-part series finale. It's a long view ending, and just...
It's bad.
Everything they did was wrong. Like, the pacing was wrong, none of the jokes really landed, and they undid pretty much the entire point of the series. We were talking about... And I guess technically you could argue that this is an example of a tieback ending, because the first episode and the last episode more or less ended the same way,
right.
With Ted at Robin's window trying to win her back. But it pretty much, because we were talking about how you want to compare and contrast where your character is at the beginning of your story and where he is at the end of the story. And not only did they negate everything by having the mother... That was the twist, I guess. They tried too many different kinds of ends, I guess, is kind of the thing.
That's fair.
Because they couldn't pick a direction, and they just went everywhere with it, and it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Because they did have the twist, and it was that the mother has been dead for the entire time that Ted has been telling this story to the children. And the takeaway is that Ted is ready to get back into the dating world and is back to chasing Robin.
God!
It's one of those things where it could have been like a full circle type of scenario, but Ted had finally moved on to a point where he had outgrown the need to have this conclusive romantic gesture type ending, and he had and it was really mature to kind of in the flashbacks that he has with Tracy. I don't even know the mother's name for sure. I think it's Tracy. Definitely begins with a T because they have the same initials. Anyway,
something like that.
The mother. They get into. He proposes to her, and they don't get around to getting married, and she's pregnant, and they are raising their first kid, and he has like this big, huge wedding planned. That's like the kind of wedding he always talked about throughout the show, while he's having all these forced romantic moments with other women, namely Robin.
Right.
But she's like, we can't go to wherever for the wedding because oh God.
He's coughing.
Yeah.
Honey.
Or Harley.
Oh, Bubba. He doesn't like the ending of How I Met Your Mother.
I don't blame him. But he goes through this whole thing, and she's like, we can't have the wedding there because I'm gonna have a kid. And that's pretty much like he realizes that he doesn't need the big romantic gesture because when you find the person that you're meant to be with, you really do just know. And
right.
He's just comfortable with her. And when they do finally get married after their second kid years later, it's just like a city hall thing, and they have like this really comfortable relationship, and you can really see the love there. And they go in this direction, and it's taken Ted such a long time to get to that point, and we finally get to see it for less than an entire episode before he's back at Robin's window with a blue French horn, and it's like, I can't.
Why? Why would you just negate your whole series like that?
Yeah, it was just...
Especially because at this point in the series, we don't even want to see them together.
They'd outgrown it. And that was kind of the whole, because he had made that progress, and then he reverted back.
Right. And it's like, as it turns out...
Like, him never learning his lesson would have been one thing, but learning his lesson and then
unlearning it
was just... It was painful. It was hard to watch. And then, like, we had... There was, like, this really weird thing where Barney becomes a dad. He becomes, like, a single dad. And it's like, that's...
Huh.
It was kind of sweet, because we get to see that he's a good dad.
Right.
And, like, it changes him, and he evolves, but he had, like, several arcs throughout the thing where he's like, but maybe I really could be happy if I settled down. And he has, like, multiple engagements throughout the show, and then he marries Robin over the course of an entire season, gets divorced with her in Longview episode finale. I wish I could remember, like, the final goodbye or whatever, the last slap. I don't know what the season the finale of How I Met Your Mother is, but it's
bad.
It is bad. And we kind of, like, he never has that progress with anyone. He marries Robin. They're married for, I think it's only, like, 3 years.
Jesus Christ.
And then, like,
we're done with that.
Does grow up, it's because he's a parent, which I'm not opposed to characters growing up when they become parents or having that over romance, but there was just so much lead up to Barney having that kind of healthy relationship with a woman finally, and then after Robin, he just gives up.
Right, he's like, oh, I'm done with that. It's like, wait a second. Who goddamn wrote this show?
A bunch of idiots, I guess.
Bunch of goddamn fools.
Matt Conn?
Fucking.
Is that who wrote How I Met Your Mother?
I don't know.
Anyway,
we're mad at them.
How I Met Your Mother, bad.
And then my choice, we're going back to anime here. So my choice for the worst television ending I watched was the fucking, the ending of Black Butler 2, which, first of all, they didn't need to do that, because they had a wealth of source material. They fucked up the end of the first season. Also, actually, all the fucking ends for Black Butler were pretty bad. Of the original series. Because in the fucking... Okay, so season 2, first of all, totally unnecessary. Because they could have just waited and adapted the manga more, but instead they had a weird angel thing they did instead, which was bad. So at the end of it, like, the whole season is based around, like, someone else is trying to steal CL's soul, like another demon is trying to do it, because his soul is better, I guess. He's got a good soul to eat. That's, like, the idea of the whole thing. So, like, fucking Sebastian Claus spent the whole time goddamn fighting over this. And, like, there's this other demon who is also there, which is super weird, because she's definitely just fan service that nobody asked for.
Wait. What?
Okay, so,
I'm sorry. I don't know. I couldn't make it through any Black Butler. I'm gonna be honest.
That's more than fair.
So I have, like, a very confused perspective on this. I feel like having a female demon as fan service for an audience that is watching Black Butler is the wrong call.
It's confusing as fuck, because the audience just, like, does not care, like, about that at all. Also, like, the author is, like, it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
It makes zero sense.
Okay.
Like, there have been a couple of fan servicey women in the manga, but, I mean, like, people want to look at Sebastian's abs, and that's about it.
That's what I thought the show was.
Yeah,
basically.
Not gonna lie. You're not wrong. Anyway, so fucking, yeah, so she's there, because the really weird thing about her is she's also, like, she's the sheath for this sword.
I
So
hate this.
There are several moments where we have to witness one of the demons sticking his arm down her throat and pulling a sword out. It's terrible.
Okay, that's not where I thought that was going.
It's
but
bad.
I think it's worse.
So it's terrible. This whole season is a fuck show.
What is this show?
Bad. So anyway, in the last episode, like, she takes CL's soul and is like, you two are gonna have to fight for it. Because, like, the one demon was like, oh, Ben's here. Wait a second. Hey, babe.
Hey.
I'm complaining about the end of Black Butler. We're still podcasting.
Explain Black Butler to me.
Oh, I thought you said Black Panther.
No! Why would I do that?
What happened in Black Panther?
No, Black Butler.
Sure, Black Butler is a anime
Yeah.
written in 1999
Mm-hmm.
about like a demon.
Yes.
Who finds a child
Yes.
who's in a bad way,
Yes.
and makes a contract with them,
Yeah.
and then the goal is to find the people who murdered the boy's family and
Yes.
everybody,
Yes.
and exact revenge upon them. A lot of different things happen in the story. There are other characters.
That's true.
Um,
Do you remember the second season of the original anime?
is that with the dog? Is that the first season or the second season?
The second season was the one with Claude and Eloise.
Oh yeah, sure.
I was talking about the multiple times when Claude just shoves his arm down Hannah's throat and just pulls his fucking sword out.
You're gonna have to
Yeah.
shoot me a refresher on that bad boy.
She has a sword inside of her
Yes.
that they have to pull out of her stomach, so they have to reach in and pull it out. I don't know why. I don't know why.
It's a weird person anime, Alan.
It's true though. Hi.
It's a weird person anime. It's not a
Hi.
There's a part in the first season. Is the first season the one where like the person all of a sudden has the boobies?
Yes.
They like
They
also, and then they die because that's the finale.
Yeah, they are the final boss. The
Yes.
angel guy thing. There's also like a weird bondage fetish thing.
Oh, is there a weird bondage fetish thing in Black Butler? No. Shit, Black Butler? Fully reputable. I was showing that one to my kids.
What? Hey, you? What?
What are you talking about? I'm trying to put you on blast. Black Butler's weird. There's a lot of cool ideas and things in it, and even parts where I was like, oh, that's sick, actually. Like the part where the caretaker was like a Grim Reaper the whole time.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
that was a
Undertaker's-
fucking cool sight.
The fucking best.
Sick. All the rest of it,
That's true.
I got concerns.
That's more than fair.
Hey, person who wrote back Butler, go to jail. Do not pass go on that one. Just fucking
Go to jail.
go to jail. Hey guys, it's my new cool anime. First scene, fucking look at this Bishonen demon guy finds a naked child who's just being tortured. Alright, and then what happens? Oh, wouldn't you like to know what happens next? This is the plot of Black Butler.
I know it's the plot
Don't
of
look
Black
around
Butler.
like, what?
Why do you think I cut ties with Black Butler?
If that's how it starts, though,
That is not how it actually starts.
Oh yeah, sorry, that's the backstory.
Yeah, that's the
They get to that
backstory.
in like
oh, that's
episode 2.
so they like ease you into that.
I don't know where to take this episode. I got put on blast real hard.
Speaking of bad ends, thanks for listening to our podcast.
Ben, what's the worst ending you've ever seen in something? Is it The Last of Us?
Last of Us is up there for sure. Hard to get excited for Last of Us 2 when I didn't want Last of Us 1 anymore. That's probably, like, off the top of my head. Yeah, I mean, it's probably Last of Us. Talked all about that on my podcast.
Ooh.
Hit up Cookies and Milk for the episode is Real Boy Hours, Real Boy Hands. More on that hot take. Last of Us is bad? No.
Oh.
Last of Us is fine. Well, it's a very good video game, but that ending
Is bad.
is bad.
Last of Us is a really good example about the implicit ending that we were talking about earlier.
But I didn't say it because I didn't want to make Ben mad.
Oh, what you got? You think it's good?
No,
You got opinions?
I don't think it's good.
Mr. Black Butler here, gonna talk
I
to me about
said you told me that! I'm not about that life anymore.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
It's fine.
Okay, so this is the end of our episode, I guess.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning in to Cookies and Milk.
This
Cookies
is
are
not
fine.
Hey, hold on! I can't do the outro, Kat. You gotta do the outro.
I don't even remember what our outro is.
We just closed the box.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, that's how we're ending it. I'm done. I'm leaving. I have to get to the recording program to leave.
Oh, it's not been recording this whole time. Thank goodness.